You've been a little more silent than usual. Not playing games, just living your life. Fewer texts, less checking your phone, more space, and then you see her again. Maybe it's at a casual get-together. Maybe it's online. Maybe it's at work. You feel it before you even see it. That subtle shift in the air. You glance up. She's already looking at you. But the moment your eyes meet, she looks away. Fast. Laughs a little too loud, starts talking to someone else, and just like that, your confidence takes a hit. Your mind fills in the blanks immediately. Okay, she's definitely not interested anymore. Maybe I waited too long. Maybe pulling back killed whatever was there. I know that feeling. That quiet confusion, that second guessing, that urge to either chase clarity or shut down completely to protect your pride. And here's the truth most men never get told. That moment wasn't rejection, it was information. The problem is, most guys are taught to listen only to words, texts, replies, availability. But women don't process absence the way men do. When a woman feels your absence, it doesn't always show up as pursuit. It shows up as behavioral leakage, small, involuntary signals she doesn't even realize she's sending. And if you don't know how to read them, you'll miss everything. You'll pull away when she's actually leaning in. You'll chase when she's testing safety. You'll mistake restraint for disinterest. That's why today, we're not talking about what women say. We're decoding what women do when you're not around, and why it matters. I'm going to walk you through the subtle, real-world behaviors that reveal what a woman feels during your absence. No gimmicks, no manipulation, just clarity. By the end of this video, you'll know when absence is working in your favor, when it's creating emotional pull, and how to respond without chasing, forcing, or disappearing. And more importantly, you'll stop guessing. Here's what we're going to unpack together. The glance and dart, why she looks at you, then looks away, and why that moment means more than you think, the conversation bounce, how she keeps the connection alive without technically reaching out, the proximity shift, what changes in her behavior when you're not there, and the mistakes men unknowingly make, the emotional echo, how she brings you up when you're not present, the friend factor, what her circle reveals about her true feelings before she ever does. This isn't about trying harder, it's about seeing clearly. Because when you understand what absence actually triggers in a woman, you stop reacting emotionally, and you start moving with calm, grounded confidence. Now let's start with the first sign most men completely misread. The glance and dart, why she looks, then looks away. During your absence, let me paint a picture. You've been busy. Maybe you pulled back a little, fewer messages, less availability. Then you run into her again, at work, at a gathering, maybe online. You feel her eyes on you, just for a second. And when you look up, she looks away, quickly, almost like she got caught. Your mind jumps straight to the worst conclusion. She's not interested anymore. Maybe she's moved on. Maybe I imagined the connection. I get why that thought shows up. I really do. But here's the part most men don't realize. That look-away moment often has nothing to do with disinterest, especially during your absence. Here's what's really happening. When a woman feels your absence, her awareness of you increases, not decreases. Your presence becomes noticeable by contrast. And that sudden awareness creates vulnerability. Looking at you means acknowledging a feeling she hasn't sorted out yet. So she looks. Then she darts away. Not because she doesn't care, but because she does. I've seen this pattern over and over. When a woman is indifferent, her gaze is neutral, relaxed, unbothered. But when emotion is involved, especially unspoken emotion, eye contact suddenly feels exposing. That quick look away is a self-regulation move. It's her saying, okay, focus, don't give this away. Now here's the part that matters most, what you do next. Most men make one of two mistakes here. They either pull back emotionally, assuming rejection, or overcorrect by forcing attention, validation, or reassurance. Both moves collapse the tension. The grounded response is much simpler. You stay exactly where you are, calm, open, unreactive. You don't confront the moment, you don't chase it, you don't punish it with distance. You just remain present and observant. Because when a woman feels something during your absence, she doesn't rush toward you. She circles. She checks if the emotional door is still open. She watches to see if you are steady. And steadiness is what makes her feel safe enough to reveal more. Here's the mindset shift I want you to take with you. Interest during absence shows up quietly first, in glances, in pauses, in moments she thinks no one notices. Your power isn't in reacting, It's in allowing the moment to exist without rushing to label it. So let me ask you this. If she's not reaching out directly, but she keeps showing up in your awareness, what other subtle ways might she be keeping the connection alive without saying a word? That's where we go next. 2. The conversation bounce. How she reappears without really reaching out. Let's talk about something subtle, but incredibly revealing. You haven't texted her in a while. You're not initiating. There's space. And then suddenly, she pops up. Not with a clear, "Hey, I miss you." Not with anything direct. Instead, it's something small. A reaction to your story. A random question that doesn't need to be asked. A callback to an old joke. A "Did you ever end up?" message that feels almost unnecessary. That's not an accident. This is what I call the conversation bounce. When a woman feels your absence but isn't ready to fully expose that feeling, she looks for low-risk entry points, ways to reconnect without emotionally committing. Here's why this matters. If she were indifferent, she wouldn't bother. Silence would feel neutral to her. But when your absence creates emotional awareness, she doesn't want to break the connection. She just wants to test whether it's still safe. So she tosses the conversational ball lightly into your space. What most men do wrong here, they either overinvest immediately, flooding the conversation, or respond coldly, trying to hold power. Both miss the point. The right response is measured presence. You reply warmly, but not desperately, engaged, but not interrogating, open, but not chasing momentum. Why? Because she's watching how you respond, not just that you respond. She's checking, are you grounded? Are you emotionally steady? Or are you going to grab onto her message like a lifeline? The conversation bounce isn't a demand, it's an invitation, and how you handle it determines whether she feels comfortable stepping closer or pulling back again. Here's the mindset shift. You don't need to restart the whole connection. You just need to show that the door is still open and calm. So let me ask you this. If she keeps finding small ways to re-enter your world, what happens when your absence starts affecting her behavior in person? That's where things get really interesting. 3. The proximity shift. What changes when you're not there? And the mistakes men make. Now here's where I'm going to give you a gentle but important wake-up call. When a woman feels your absence, her behavior around space changes. She finds reasons to be where you are. She lingers a little longer. She positions herself closer than necessary, not dramatically, not obviously, just consistently. And here's the part most men miss. Proximity is rarely conscious. She's not thinking, "Let me stand closer to him." Her body is responding before her logic catches up. Now let's talk about the common mistake. When men notice this shift, they often do one of two things. They invade her space too quickly, or they retreat completely, assuming they're imagining it. Both reactions break the natural rhythm. Absence creates tension. Proximity tests whether that tension feels safe. If you rush in, you overwhelm it. If you disappear, you collapse it. The grounded move is awareness without pressure. You don't close the distance aggressively. You don't flee it either. You let her choose the closeness, and you remain relaxed within it. Here's why this works. When a woman feels comfortable being physically near you during your absence, it means she's processing emotion somatically, not verbally yet. And that stage is fragile. Your job isn't to force clarity. It's to avoid disrupting the signal. So here's your calm correction. Stop trying to do something every time you notice interest. Sometimes the strongest move is simply not getting in the way, because when you allow proximity to develop naturally, it answers a question she hasn't even articulated yet. Does he feel safe when I feel something? Now ask yourself this. If her body is responding before her words, who else might already know what she's feeling before she does? That's where we go next. 4. The emotional echo. How she brings you up. When you're not around, this one is quiet. And because it's quiet, most men completely miss it. You're not there. You haven't been mentioned directly, and yet you show up. Maybe someone tells you later, "Yeah, your name came up." Or you notice she references something you once said, or she brings up a shared moment casually, like it just slipped out. That's the emotional echo. When a woman feels your absence, her mind keeps revisiting you, not dramatically, but naturally. And those thoughts need somewhere to go, so they leak out in conversation. Here's the key distinction. This isn't nostalgia, it's integration. She's subconsciously placing you into her emotional landscape, even when you're not present. If there were no feeling, there would be no echo. Your name wouldn't surface. Your influence wouldn't linger. Now here's where men go wrong. They hear about this and think, oh, I should bring myself up more. Or they try to force shared memories into conversation. Don't. The power of the emotional echo is that she initiates it. Your response isn't to amplify it, it's to receive it calmly. A simple acknowledgement, a grounded presence, no performance. Because what she's really asking, without saying it, is, does this still feel safe to feel? If you stay relaxed, she leans in emotionally. If you overreact, she pulls back to regulate herself. So here's the takeaway. When she carries you into rooms you're not in, you don't need to chase her into those rooms. Just stay solid where you are. And now ask yourself this. If she's processing her feelings internally, who else is watching her do it from the outside? 5. The friend factor. What her circle reveals about her true feelings. Let me tell you something women rarely say out loud. By the time a woman fully understands her feelings, her friends already know. Her inner circle sees the changes before she does. The way she lights up at your name, the way she defends you subtly, the way they suddenly treat you differently. Maybe they're warmer, more curious, more observant, or maybe they casually bring you up. A lot. That's not random. Friends act as emotional mirrors. They respond to what she's been revealing privately. So if your absence has triggered something real, you'll feel it through them first. Now here's the mistake men make. They try to win the friends over deliberately. They overperform. They seek validation. You don't need to do any of that. The correct move is simple. Be consistent. Be respectful. Be unbothered. When her friends see that you're grounded, not chasing, not withdrawing, it reinforces her sense of emotional safety. And emotional safety is what allows interest to grow. So remember this. When her friends change toward you, it's usually because she already has. Which brings us to the bigger picture. Here's the controversial truth most men need to hear. A woman's feelings during your absence aren't loud. They're revealing. If she doesn't care, nothing changes. No glances, no echoes, no behavioral shifts. But when she does feel something, absence acts like a mirror. It shows her what's missing. It shows her what matters. And it shows you exactly where you stand, if you know how to look. This isn't about disappearing to get a reaction, and it's definitely not about manipulation. It's about understanding that you don't need to force connection to create impact. Sometimes, the most confident thing you can do is step back just enough to let behavior speak. And when you respond calmly, without chasing, without shutting down, you give her the space to move towards you freely. That's where real attraction lives. If any of this sounded familiar, I want to hear from you. Comment below. What changes have you noticed when you pulled back? What behaviors confused you that now make more sense? I read those stories, and yes, I respond. Let me leave you with this. Pay attention to what grows in the silence. That's usually where the truth is. And if you know how to stay grounded there, you're already ahead of most men.